So now you think about this common term that's come to evolve, inflammaging. We like to say inflammaging, like as we age, we're all supposed to become more and more inflamed. Well, the root cause of this inflammation is decreased ability to gain oxygen. A gentleman in the 1960s and 1970s named Manfred van Arden discovered that if you exercise while breathing near pure oxygen, he could reverse those aging in the cardiovascular system that causes us to be able to take in less and less oxygen. He had people come back weeks later and he noticed they maintained this more youthful state. And so that was the birth of exercise with oxygen therapy.
Thank you so much for joining us on another awesome episode of Bioenergetics Beat. I'm Heather Gray, a functional diagnostic nutrition practitioner and certified bioenergetic practitioner, and today's episode is brought to you by Nikki, Unleash the Wellness Within. It's a non-invasive, easily affordable, and a highly effective approach to optimize wellness. It's a wearable device that puts frequency-better-based life in your hands and on your wrist. Make sure to stick to the very, very end because you're not going to want to, we've got an amazing giveaway you're not going to want to miss out on, but you're also not going to want to miss out on one word that my next guest has got to say, because we're going to dive deep into some really awesome conversation that I know you all are going to geek out on. So without further ado, let's welcome Brad Pitzele to the show. Yay.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Yeah, awesome. So where are you calling in from today?
From the Dallas-Fort Worth area.
Okay. I won't hold that against you. I'm kidding. I'm in Colorado, and we've had a Texas stampede. You know, we just got our first Buc-ee's, and like the whole state like lost their mind over a gas station. It's
a gas station, right?
I'm
not from here, so I don't have to defend it either.
I'm still shocked. I'm like, it's a gas station, folks, with really not very healthy food, but that's another topic for another story. So tell us a little bit about, I know we're going to be talking about oxygen to overcome certain things. I fell in love with oxygen. Oxygen was actually one of the very first methods I used when I first got diagnosed with Lyme disease. I went out and bought an ozone machine, and I've been using it ever since. So I absolutely love this conversation. I don't think we've had anybody on here talking about oxygen. So tell us a little bit about you, your background, how you got started in this. Most folks I know who are talking about kind of alternative things have got a bit of a pain to purpose story. So tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, then I'm not special in that regard. I definitely do. I've had strange coming and going health things that happen throughout my life. I get these weird symptoms. I go to a doctor, it would go away. I had autoimmune psoriasis since early grade school. But in 2010, it turned into psoriatic arthritis. And I started going in seeing a rheumatologist who put me on immune suppressants. And that worked for about 2 years. They would work for 6 months. They'd stop working. They'd give me even more of them. They'd work for 6 months. They'd stop working. And then it was just this kind of revolving door. At about the 2-year mark, I developed this thing on my shoulder, and I went to a dermatologist, and lo and behold, it was melanoma. And unfortunately, I knew one of the side effects of the immune suppressants was cancer, and specifically melanoma. And so I went back to my rheumatologist and said, what am I going to do here, doc? If I don't take the drugs, I die of an autoimmune condition and in pain. And if I do take them, I die of cancer. I'm not really up for either of those choices. And he was kind of nonchalant and was like, well, we'll try just a different brand of the same sort of stuff you've been putting in yourself. And I left and I was like, oh, geez, so there's got to be a third path forward. I don't know what it is. And that really started me down the path of alternate health. I tried so much stuff and I didn't get any relief. Restrictive diets, all sorts of supplements and herbs and you name it. And then I was eventually diagnosed with Lyme disease and one of its co-infections called Bartonella, the bacteria that causes cat scratch fever. I had a doctor. Now, when you get Lyme disease, most doctors won't touch it with a 10-foot pole. They say you got to go see a specialist, and there's a lot of politics around Lyme. And this alternate kind of holistic health doctor I was seeing said, hey, I'm not a Lyme specialist. I can't treat you. You're going to have to go find a Lyme specialist, but I really recommend oxygen. And I really think you need it. And at this point, I was in dire straits. I was losing my ability to walk. I had the backs of my muscles were really stiff. The bottom of my feet were incredibly painful. It felt like someone had beaten them with a meat hammer is the best way to describe it. Nerve pain, brain fog, like just probably 57 different symptoms, and probably I can only remember 15 of them, thank God. Um, and so um, there was two forms of oxygen he specifically recommended. He either recommended hyperbaric oxygen or he recommended exercise with oxygen therapy, which is something I'd never heard of before. So I looked into hyperbaric oxygen and I said, the challenge with it became that it was going to be $50,000 to $75,000. It was going to be going to a doctor's office, perhaps out of state, spending 90 minutes in a tube 7 days a week, plus time to pressurize and depressurize the tube. And I was fighting for my job, and I knew that wasn't going to work, both financially and time wise. So then I looked at exercise with oxygen therapy, and there were companies at the time selling it for like $5,000 to $25,000, and there was a lot of hyperbole in the marketing I saw in the marketplace. So I didn't really believe it was even a legit sort of thing. And so I couldn't see myself investing in it. And I just kind of went online and did some research on what it was, and I ended up making my own system. And about a year later, I was doing better, and the doctor said, hey, you're doing a lot better. Did you do the oxygen? And I said, I am, yeah. And he said, that's great. Who'd you buy it from? So I can tell my patients. And I said, Doc, I just made my own. And he looked at me crazy. I was like, what? You made your own? And I'm like, yeah. And he said, would you consider making them for my patients? And that was kind of the birth of the idea of 1000 Roads, our company.
That's crazy. Yeah, it's amazing. What do they say? Necessity is the
The
mother of
mother
all
of
inventions, you
invention.
know? So yeah, it just goes to show. I had another friend who did something similar with a frequency device because she was looking for a Rife machine and they were super expensive and she couldn't find anyone around here. And then she was just like, looks like simple circuitry to me. She's like, I'm going to try to build my own. And I was like, what? Like, I totally give much props to people who can do that. Like, yeah, not everybody can sit in front of a camera and talk, or in front of a large group of people. That's me. I'm not the one that will, build something out of, oh, necessity. Like, no. But yeah, kudos to you for being able to do that. We're going to take a real quick break. When we come back, I want to dive deeper into how the actual oxygen works, how your machine is different from others, and then, what other, wherever the path takes us. So don't go anywhere. Stay tuned. We'll be right back.
Hey, I'm Steve. I'm an engineer, a biohacker, and a dad, and I love my Nikki. I use 3 different programs on this one mostly. In the mornings, I run Energy Boost, which honestly is about the equivalent of a cup of coffee. I still have my coffee, but this does make a difference. After work, I run my stress and anxiety program, and that takes me from being like, task mode from work to really kind of chilled out dad mode, which is nice. And occasionally, when I need it, I run the pain program as well. I actually tore my ACL last September, middle of September, and I was running again by middle of October. No surgery, no therapy, just the pain program once a day. So I've worked with red light therapy for several years now, and like I said, this is just about my favorite because it is so easy to use. I just put it on my wrist in the morning, run it all day, don't even notice it's there except for how I feel. So I love it.
Nikki Wellness Technology. Delivering frequency enhanced health. We are Nikki.com.
Welcome back, everybody. I'm super excited to hear more about Brad's story, being a fellow ex-Limey myself. I'm curious as to, what he did, how long it took him to get better. How is his machine different than any others? How does oxygen actually work against these certain things of, he listed off cancer, fatigue, Lyme disease, and we're going to dive deeper into all those aspects. So Brad, take it away.
That's great. So oxygen is really important. What most folks don't know is every year past the age of 25, our body loses 1% of its ability to utilize oxygen. And that doesn't have a big impact at first, but as the decades go on, it becomes more and more apparent. We're less energetic. We're a little bit slower. We have less memory, etc. But the other interesting thing is um, when you lose the ability to utilize oxygen, some parts of your body are oxygen starved. And the medical term for that is hypoxia. And interestingly enough, research shows anywhere in your body you have hypoxia, you have inflammation. And anywhere you have inflammation, you have hypoxia. They're actually just two sides of the same coin. So now you think about this common term that's come to evolve, inflammaging. We like to say inflammaging, like as we age, we're all supposed to become more and more inflamed. Well, the root cause of this inflammation is decreased ability to gain oxygen. And a gentleman in the 1960s and 1970s named Manfred van Arden discovered that if you exercise while breathing near pure oxygen, he could reverse those aging in the cardiovascular system that causes us to be able to take in less and less oxygen. And he noticed that after just a few sessions of doing this, he had people come back weeks later and he noticed they maintained this more youthful state. And so that was the birth of exercise with oxygen therapy. And it's very similar to hyperbaric oxygen. In hyperbaric oxygen, we use pressure to push more oxygen through our lungs and into our blood. In EWOT, we use exercise to pull more oxygen in, because when you start exercising, your body needs a massive amount of more energy. And so it has all these physiological changes that it makes to compensate and drive more oxygen into our blood and then circulate it more efficiently. Everything from breathing deeper to thinning of the lung membrane to our hearts beating deeper and faster, and vasodilation, among others. And so we're effectively hijacking all of these physiological changes to bring this oxygen more deeply into the tissues.
Absolutely. And it's so great because people don't realize that even just, I recently saw a study too, that every decade, every 10 years, how much the oxygen level in our atmosphere has gone down due to pollution. And then if you live at a higher altitude, like I do here in Colorado, and then if you have like a deviated septum, like I did, like there's all these different reasons that I wasn't getting enough oxygen. And it's incredible what happens, to your body. It won't detox properly. And if you don't detox properly, then you're getting inflamed, like the brain fog. It was crazy. It was like somebody turned the lights back on everywhere, once I started getting enough oxygen. So can you tell us a little bit more, some of the different mechanisms that oxygen, helps to overcome these certain things?
Absolutely. So we already mentioned inflammation, which is a big one. And you mentioned detoxification and energy. So when your body is using oxygen to produce energy, it's called aerobic respiration. It takes oxygen plus glucose, and it can produce APT, the energy source all of our cells use. Now, one molecule of glucose plus oxygen can produce, let's say, about 36 units of APT. When the body runs out of oxygen, it'll continue to burn glucose. But in the absence of oxygen, that's called anaerobic respiration. And anaerobic respiration takes 1 unit or 1 molecule of glucose and only produces 2 molecules of APT. So it goes from 36 units to 2. So now these cells are in a lower energy state. And the other byproduct of anaerobic respiration is it produces a massive amount of metabolic waste products like lactic acid. But because our cells don't have the energy that they need to do all of their functions, they stop doing non-essential functions like taking out the trash. So this metabolic waste builds up inside the cell wall. when you switch and you start doing oxygen, you're giving the energy for each of our cells, whether it's a liver cell, whether it's a brain cell, whether it's a muscle cell, to work at its optimum, skin cells, everything. But also it gives it the energy to detoxify all of these waste products that have built up inside them. So it'll release them. The second way it detoxifies is in order to break down a lot of these chemicals for our elimination organs to get them out of our body, they need to be oxidized, which is a fancy term for the chemical reaction by which oxygen breaks these into simpler chemicals that our body can handle. So it's very big into detoxification. Obviously, it promotes a lot more energy, but also more restful sleep, because there's a lot of research showing that lack of oxygen causes poor sleep. And then some of the most powerful research is also around cancer and oxygen. Oxygen, it's been known since the 1920s that you can take a regular cell and turn it into a cancer cell simply by depriving it of oxygen. And there's a lot of research that shows that the survival rate of somebody who has cancer is directly proportional to the oxygen status of the tumor. So bringing more oxygen in is very anti-cancer, and it helps treat cancer. And then lastly, one of the big components, obviously, we're talking about all the systems of the body working most efficiently. That also includes our immune system. And in this day and age, with all the toxins and chemicals and obviously all the infectious agents, our immune systems need to be at their best. And so when our immune system has the oxygen it needs, it can produce all of the immune, all of the immune components it needs to protect us.
Absolutely. So tell me how is yours different? And like, how did you even, what was your background before you even got into this? Like, how was it that your brain was like, let me build one?
So I always joke I'm a recovering engineer. I was a mechanical engineer for undergrad. I did engineering for 10 or so years, and I left before I got sick. So I decided to put that degree to work. If you looked out in the marketplace, when we came into the marketplace, like I said, folks were selling these for $5,000 and $25,000, and that made sense because they were primarily selling them to cryo clinics, chiropractors, doctors' offices, who were turning around and selling a service for $35 or $50 an hour. So our goal was, hey, if we can bring the price down and put this in people's homes, we can broaden the market. And so that was really our primary goal. My experience was when I had chronic illness was I always felt like there's always somebody who wanted me to spend $10,000 or $25,000 on some experiment to get better. And it just felt kind of like parasitic, like you're sick, you're desperate, and now you've got everyone saying, hey, give me 10 grand and let's see what this does.
It's funny. Sorry, I hate to interrupt, but that was part of the reason why I didn't actually follow up with the Nikki brand at first, because all the energetic stuff that I was using was $10,000, $20,000, $30,000 for these frequency generating machines. These guys came along, it was like $1,500. I'm like, there's no way in hell that works for that price. And it like took 3 different times to come across my radar before I was like, okay, let's give it a shot. And I've been hooked ever since. That was 2 years ago. But so yeah, kudos
That's
to you.
amazing.
Yeah, right. How many times are we hit up with 10, 20, 30,000? And oh, it drives me crazy.
There's a lot of it out there. And I feel like technology in general is evolving fast. And, so there's chances to revisit some of these little niche markets that folks have been getting away with it, in my opinion. So this was kind of a thumb in the eye of some of that, that kind of mentality is, well, let's just go out there and not try to, let's not try to get rich on one sale. Let's try to bring down the price so more people can afford it. And it was really out of kind of gratitude and paying it forward, knowing like, if I know how desperate I was when I was at my lowest point, and to be able to help people, that's kind of the coolest part about it, is being able to flip it on its head and say, hey, this is something you can afford. And really, the power of oxygen is being able to do it consistently over time. I was talking to a customer of ours today who used to do hyperbaric, and he said, I would fly from Chicago down to Florida and I would spend 2 hours in a hyperbaric tank. And he's like, he's like, I said, yeah, now you're doing it, getting similar or better benefits in 15 minutes in your own exercise room in your house or in your garage. And you can do that for years. And I will tell you, the benefits for me accrued over like 3 years. I was shocked at how long I continue to get additional wellness benefits out of EWOT. And so that was kind of the idea around it. Now we don't cut corners on quality because we really want to put something out there that's useful for folks. It's not about just selling a product. So I would say in general, the differences between ours is one, affordability, and two, what folks tell us all the time is our customer service. We have real people answering the phones, not phone trees. And if you send us an email or give us a call, whether you bought it last week or you're looking to buy it next month, we pick up the phone and we talk to our customers and prospective customers. Because when you're sick, I had that brain fog. I couldn't read anything. I didn't know what was going on. I needed someone to tell me I was doing it right before I had an anxiety attack half the time, right? So we try to come at it from that empathetic point of view.
Well, and talk about tackling, inflammaging. Like you just turned 102, right?
That's right. Shh, don't tell anybody.
No, but so one little concern I have, like with having these in your home, like how does it not go kaboom? Like,
It's a great
isn't there?
question.
Yeah, right? Okay.
So oxygen is not flammable like gasoline. It is an accelerant. So what that means is if you have a fire already burning, it'll make it burn hotter and faster. Now, what I always tell folks, so like, don't put the thing next to your water heater, your furnace, or your stove, or some other gas appliance, right? Put it at least 10 feet away from those sorts of things. However, as I tell folks, if it's away from natural sources of sparks and fire, you're not smoking around it or anything like that. If you have a fire that's hot enough to burn through our reservoir that's holding our oxygen, you already have a big problem in your home. And I don't suggest you run towards it, run the other way, obviously. But like I can put a lighter to the end of our hose and you're not going to turn the thing into a flamethrower sort of thing. It's not going to explode.
Oh, that's good to know.
Yeah.
Wow, that's fascinating. Yeah, I remember trying hyperbaric once, and well, actually, in yours isn't really. Is it hyperbaric or is it something that you're doing with exercise?
There's no pressure needed. It's just you're
Okay.
breathing normally.
Yeah. Okay. Gotcha. So yeah, you started talking about both, and then I got sidetracked. So tell me a little bit just more about like how does yours? How does it? I can't even
Work.
picture it. Yeah. How does it work?
So when you're exercising, you can easily use 50 or 60 liters of oxygen a minute, which is a massive amount of oxygen. So we have a device that purifies oxygen out of the air. The air in most places, not up in Colorado, it's a little less there, but in most places, like near sea level, it's 21% oxygen. And these machines will purify it to about 93% oxygen, which is medical grade oxygen. But they only produce, we have two different units, one that produces 5 liters a minute and the other that produces 10 liters per minute. That's not enough to exercise with. So we use those machines to fill a large reservoir. It looks like a large balloon. It holds 1,000 liters. So if you think about a 2-liter bottle of pop, it's like 500 of those, right? So it's a large reservoir of 1,000 liters. And from that reservoir, it has a hose that you hook up to a mask and you put on this mask with the hose and you just do cardiovascular or other exercise for 15 minutes. And in that 15 minutes, some folks can use the whole reservoir. Most do not, but it's designed so the vast majority of folks can get a 15-minute workout. And the reason why we do a 15-minute workout is that's where all the original research showed all of these benefits occur at, is if you do a 15-minute workout. And so the protocol is generally you do 15 minutes of cardio. Ideally, I like to see folks doing it 3 to 5 times a week, but we have folks who are very ill and they start doing it maybe even just once a week and seeing really good benefits.
That's absolutely incredible. In 15 minutes, I'm a fan.
Right? Time savings as well.
I mean, I coined this phrase that, my self-care feels like a part-time job, but it's better than being full-time sick, which, right, it's
Yep.
truth, unfortunately, but at the same time, when we can get these, work harder, I mean, work smarter, not harder, when we can dial in some of these stacks, and get a lot more benefits in less time, like that's also a huge blessing, because when you're trying to overcome a chronic illness, like I said, it can feel a little like a part-time job trying to get better.
It certainly can. And I always, my term for that is the ceremonies. I always said when I had Lyme disease, there's all these ceremonies. You count the pills out every night before, you go do a sauna session, you go do this, you go do that. And there's just and it's like, it becomes a full-time job where it's like, yeah, I felt better for 15 minutes after I spent 8 hours doing all these things. And that is what's great. It not only is it 15 minutes, and that 15 minutes for folks who have Lyme disease, for instance, oxygen kills Lyme. For folks who have cancer, it'll help kill off the cancer. For other people, it'll tamp down on your inflammation, and then it'll also detoxify you. And that is so important when you're getting over a lot of chronic illnesses, just getting the bad stuff out of our bodies so all of our organs and processes can work efficiently and effectively.
Absolutely. Hey, so this is a shameless plug area of the show. So I would love to find out, how can people find out more about you? Where can they find you? What you got coming out these days?
Yeah, our website is 1000roads.com. That's ONETHOUSANDROADS.com. You can go there and find out more about us. You can also hit the contact page and send us an email or give us a phone call if you have questions. We're always here to answer our customers' questions. And, obviously there's a learning curve with something like this, but I'll tell folks, I get customers who call all the time, say, this looks really complex. I'm not sure if I can do it. But we have like an 82-year-old grandfather in Iowa who set the system up in 15 minutes and was ready to go. We intentionally design our products to not be technologically complicated. It's flip a switch sort of thing and go. Because again, people with chronic illness, they just don't have the headspace to try to figure out all these newfangled things. They just want something that works.
Absolutely. It sounds like there's a story behind your name. What's that about?
Well, there is a story, and it has to do with the road to healing. So it was a brand we started out of gratitude, and everybody has their own path to healing. And that's one of the things I've come to realize. There's this kind of traditional medicine paradigm, like, here, let me give you a pill and go away. And that's not really how it works. I think everybody has their own path. There's some modalities that work for some and not others. There's a spiritual component, I think, for folks, and there's so much to it. And so it was in honor of the fact that all of us kind of have to take our own path to get there. And our goal was to help at the beginning was to help 1,000 folks recover their health, just like I had.
That's beautiful. I love it. Also make sure to visit wearenikki.com/podcast to enter in BioBeats for 10% off. And because we really love our customers and a way we show appreciation, we want to give away a Nikki wellness device as well as a wellness set of frequencies, a $598 value on this episode. So make sure to go to the show notes and enter, and also check out Brad and his company and get your oxygen on. And thank you so much for joining us, and have a healthy day.
Thank you so much.
The very first day that I wore the device, I slept through the night, which is amazing.
It looks like a little watch, but it's actually a frequency device. It's bioenergetic, so it has this little frequency light situation that goes into your arm, and it pretty much makes an immediate difference.
So there's like a sleep mode. When I go mountain biking, I throw it on an energy booster. Once I'm done mountain biking, I actually switch it to the other mode they have is pain and relief.
When I'm in a stressful situation and I put it on, it helps me almost immediately. I immediately feel calmer, whether that's a frequency or me knowing that it's working or knowing that it's helping in addition to that.
One of my buddies was like, do not discount this. This is an amazing device. You've got to give it a chance.
It's got so many options. I'm just going to go over, it's like a menu that you can choose. It's so easy to use. You just click on what you like. For example, it's got travel, pain relief, energy boost, allergies.
I really, really love this device. In fact, I have two of them because when one is charging, I want to wear the other because I'm never without it.
It will never give you something when your body doesn't need, and it is not natural. That's what I love about the device.
Put it on focus, maybe halfway through the day as I was losing focus. And within about 10 minutes of turning on, I feel like my brain is just like, I'm connected. Like, wow.
Trying all the frequencies and I love it. The one I'm using right now out on my walk is Energy. It just energizes me. And I'm finding that I've got more stamina and more energy than I thought I would.
My Nikki helps me sleep better at night and helps me feel less stressed.
I really been enjoying it. So I've noticed my energy's been up. I've been sleeping better.
So the Nikki is one price, and then you pay for the frequency sets separately. So you can get the wellness one, which is awesome. I really do love the new Lyme frequencies so much. It's incredible.
Nikki Wellness Technology. Delivering frequency enhanced health. We are Nikki.com. The views, information, and opinions expressed in this content are solely those of the individuals involved and do not necessarily represent those of Freemedica. Freemedica Technologies, Inc. and its employees are not responsible, nor verifies accuracy any of the information contained in the following content. The primary purpose of this content is to educate and inform. This content does not constitute medical or other professional advice or services.